going back to school and immersing myself in graduate level work like that, I mean, it showed me that I had more and I had more to offer and I could do more. This was the hardest thing I've ever done. I had to learn how to learn again. I hadn't been in a classroom in over 25 years. Everything I did in college in 1999 is obsolete. I encourage anybody to go back to school. There's no such thing as being too old or it's too late. Was it intimidating at first? I mean, I can tell you, sleepless nights, man, before my first lecture. The icing on the cake for me is I did this for me. I did this to achieve something bigger, but it's opened up my eyes and it's opened up the realm of possibilities for me. You know, I had a sit down with my director of logistics the other day, who's also an Aggie. And, you know, he kind of asked me, he says, where do you want to go? And I told him point blank, I said, I want your job.
Hey, let's welcome Edmundo Martinez Jr., Iraq War veteran in the U.S. Army, who's now a leader in operations in the private sector. Good to see you, Ed, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Danny. It's an honor, and I'm humbled that you'd ask me to join you on your podcast. I've caught a couple of your episodes, some really great speakers, some great topics, and like I said, I'm humbled to be included.
Yeah, well, I'm more than welcome to host this conversation. You have a lot of experience that I'll be glad to help you share to the public. So let's start with your story. Why did you decide to join the military and what you learned from there, and, you know, what happened to you after you retired from the Army?
Sure. Well, you know, after high school, I went to college like any other kid, 18 years old. Got my bachelor's in the 4 years. And to be honest, I really didn't learn a lot. And I still had a lot of growing up to do. This was pre 9/11. I enlisted in early 2001. I was at Fort Bragg when the towers came down on 9. You know, the U.S. Army military service runs deep in my family. My father served, both my grandfathers served, you know, in combat. And so I'd always wanted to be a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division. So that's where I wanted to go. I was an infantryman, anti-tank, heavy weapons. So 11 Hotel back then. Of course, we all got reflagged to 11 Bravo. Once 9/11 kicked off, I mean, I got wrapped up in the war, being in a tip of the spear type unit at the 82nd Airborne. And so I found myself in Iraq during the invasion in Operation Iraqi Freedom and Task Force Falcon. Served just a little over 8.5 years, did 3 tours. The first with the 82nd, second was with 1st Cavalry Division in Sadr City, where I shared that deployment with Abraham. Arambula, we call him Aran. And then my third tour was with the 25th Infantry Airborne in Alaska, the 509th. As the war progressed, I got beat down, and I was physically broken down, emotionally, psychologically. And so I saw my window to get out, and you know, I opted not to reenlist. And during my transition, I was recruited by a regional grocer here in Texas called HEB to be a young warehousing distribution leader. And that's where my career in distribution and logistics kicked off. What I learned from the Army, one, it taught me a lot about myself. It taught me that ultimately, you know, in today's world, as tight as we were as infantrymen in our squads and our crews, many decisions, life decisions, come down to you. And I was taught by, you know, my eyes were opened by one of my company commanders before my third deployment. He said, they called me Marty in the Army. So Marty, make a decision, man. Right, wrong, make a decision. If it's right, you're good. If it's wrong, you learn from it. But sometimes we just have to make that decision. And that's carried me through my military time, and then of course my civilian time in private sector.
Yeah, makes sense. And going back to your early years in college, you said that you didn't feel like you've learned a lot. Was it because you weren't into you know, education at that time, or do you think it was failure on the side of the college back then?
No. I think the biggest thing was it was immaturity, man. I mean, you're 18 years old, you're on your own, you're 500 miles from home. Mom and dad aren't looking over your shoulder, so nobody makes you go to class. You know, nobody tells you to wake up. Nobody tells you to study. And yeah, I got a degree. I graduated. I got B grades, but I can honestly say I never tried. You know, I never applied myself. And I think a lot of that was just immaturity. And that's what I guess I was seeking when I enlisted. I had to grow up. I was a 21-year-old kid with a college degree, but I was still a kid.
Yeah, and once you left the army and you went to this private sector to logistics, I know like just reading your LinkedIn, you post a lot from your education side and how important it has been for you. So my understanding is that you got back to college once you're out of the
Mhm.
army to to probably to progress in your career. So what made you make this decision, and how important was it to go back to college to earn your master's degree, and what was its impact on you?
Well, I guess a little backstory is Texas A&M University here in College Station, about 70 miles from Houston. My family has a nearly a 90-year history with Texas A&M University. My grandfather, Dr. Olmedo T. Martinez, DVM, graduated in 1937, commissioned as captain, served in the Veterinary Corps in World War II in Burma in the Pacific Theater. His little brother followed him to Texas A&M. Edmundo Martinez was my grandfather's little brother and my father's namesake, was part of the famed Fight Nagy class of 1945. That class volunteered early in their junior year to go fight in the war. So they deferred their senior year. I don't know if it was the entire class, but a large portion of that 1945 class went overseas. Edmundo was a young lieutenant, infantry lieutenant, and was killed in 1945, March 18th, I believe, in Germany on the Siegfried Line. His name is memorialized at Texas A&M University's Memorial Student Center. And so I always had that heritage of Texas A&M that I never lived up to. My father was class of 1969. His brother was class of 1967. His younger brother was class of 1972. My wife is class of 2005. And so A&M is a huge part of my family. We visit College Station often. And, I think we were there in the spring to catch a baseball game at Olson Field, and I saw a sign for master's degree in supply chain and analytics. And it just planted a seed. It planted a seed, and in conversation with my wife, I said, "Hey," I said, "what if?" This was something I felt was unfinished in my life. I didn't have that cherished and prized Aggie ring that almost all the men in my family have. And my wife was fully supportive. So a simple email, I reached out, and the master's program there at Mays Business School was incredibly supportive. And I did my entire grad school application in about a week to meet a deadline. And, they forewent my GMAT and, hey, write me a reason why we should let you in. And it has been, as I told my father recently, this has probably been the most impactful thing I've ever done in my life. Outside of combat, outside of going overseas, seeing the world, outside of being a leader in the private sector and operations, this was the hardest thing I've ever done. I had to learn how to learn again. I hadn't been in a classroom in over 25 years. Everything I did in college in 1999 is obsolete. It's Stone Age. We were still saving PowerPoint presentations in little black floppy disks. I had to have a binder of floppies just to upload a single PowerPoint presentation. And so I immersed myself with my cohort, and I'm surrounded by kids. I mean, these kids are 22, 23 years old, but I mean, they're absolutely brilliant. I mean, when I was 22, 23, I was a specialist in the army, drinking beer and being a paratrooper, and then ultimately getting ready to go to war. And these kids that I'm a part of showed me a lot of, hey, what I could do. But I had to learn how to learn. I mean, there's AI, learning machines, just the applications in business. I mean, it's leaps and bounds. So apart from what our professors were teaching us in lecture, I had to learn all the background stuff to get caught up to where these kids are. But it's been an incredible journey. I've been doing it. This is my second year. They granted me to do a part-time master's program. So I drive to College Station twice a week. During the day, I'm in lecture classes, and then I come and I work my night shift here at my facility. I run two facilities for Daikin Manufacturing. But absolutely, it's been an incredible experience, and it showed me that I wasn't done. Right, like many veterans when they transition out, and speaking for myself, when I got out of the army, that's all I knew really, and I really felt my career is over. I was a soldier, I was a leader, I was a paratrooper, I went to war. I'll punch a time clock for the rest of my life and support my family. 2 years ago, that little seed was planted, and going back to school and immersing myself in graduate level work like that, I mean, it showed me that I had more and I had more to offer and I could do more. And as I told my dad, this has been probably one of, if not the greatest experiences I've had.
Yeah, yeah, that's great to hear. And how maybe at times awkward it is to, be surrounded by all of these like 23 year olds, and you're like just a little older. Is it hard to like, be in that environment, or maybe on the contrary, it helps you and inspires you to even like dive even deeper into education and learn all of these new things?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm twice their age. I'm 48 years old, and it's funny. I joke with them, and I would even joke I have more in common with my professors than I do with my cohort because we're all about the same age. And oftentimes I'll be walking around campus, and a lot of people think I'm a professor. Do you teach here? Do you work? No, I'm a student. But those youngsters, and I'll call them youngsters, these kids are, they really, I doubted myself a lot because, as I tried to explain to them, when I was at the pinnacle of my military career as a heavy weapons infantry NCO, I was the subject matter expert. I knew my weapon systems. I knew tactics. I knew my team. I trained my team. I developed my team. I developed my young leaders. I was the man. And when commanders would come to me and ask me, Sergeant Martinez, I want you main effort. What do you need? A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z. And if all goes wrong, we'll fall back on this. When I got out of that, I was fish out of water. And it took me 9 years in operations and logistics and distribution that now I feel like that expert again. Right. And I bring to the classroom years of experience, world experience that these kids don't have. Right. And so these kids are going into graduate program. They're coming out with master's degrees. They're about to hit the workforce. And frankly, they don't know anything, right? They don't know about life. They've never paid a bill. They've never had to sign a lease. They've never signed, anything like that. And so a lot of them will come to me and they'll ask me, hey, is it really like this? What's the workforce like? What's a typical day like? What's a week like? They have this vision of, hey, I'm working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Bubba in operations, it ain't nothing. There ain't no 9 to 5. Operations never sleeps. Yeah, it's been a challenge, but I've found my way. I'm the old guy. I got more gray here than most of them have total hair on their head. But yeah, it's been very welcoming. I've never felt alone. I've never felt kind of outside looking in. Very, very included. The Aggie family is very tight. Um, I've never met an Aggie that was rude. Everyone was friendly, accommodating. Help me find this. Can I, what have you? An Aggie will go out of their way to help you out.
Yeah, yeah, it's great that not only can you be in that environment and learn all of these things, but also be a mentor to other students with all of this practical experience that you have, whether it's the army or the private sector. So, would you recommend people like you, maybe veterans, but maybe just people who never, either went to college at all or never went to grad school to consider that just like you did?
Absolutely, with all my heart. I've even some of my employees who know, that what I'm doing. I encourage anybody to go back to school. There's no such thing as being too old or it's too late. Was it intimidating at first? I mean, I can tell you, I sleepless nights, man, before my first lecture. And what's it going to be like? And I haven't done this in nearly 3 decades, but absolutely. One of the big things that I see as a common theme amongst veterans, especially transitioning veterans, is finding that purpose, right? You know, when you're in the army gives you a purpose, right? Be here, be in the right uniform, and be on time. Here are your instructions, here are your task conditions and standards. This is what you have to do. This is your mission. Go. In the civilian sector, there isn't that. The real world, there isn't that. And I think when a lot of us have transitioned out, it's trying to find what that purpose is. A 9 to 5 is great. Don't get me wrong. If you love it, I'm incredibly happy, but you have to find that thing that just drives you, right? And I put that on the back burner for nearly 8 years since I got out. I punched the clock. I punched a clock and I was content. Was I happy? No. But then digging into something that I could be successful at, and there's been bumps in the road. My first real um, analytics course. I mean, it was old school. They brought it out and it was like pen, paper, pencil. And I mean, they're talking high level math. And I looked at my professor and I'm like, man, I'm in over my head. He said, no, keep plugging, keep trying, keep improving. Every day you get a little bit better. You're not going to get a 4.0 on the first day. It takes that grind, it takes that determination. And I absolutely wholeheartedly encourage anybody, any veteran or non-veteran, hey, just because you got some gray doesn't mean you can't learn something new, doesn't mean you can't tackle something new. And it's so fulfilling uh, in that it's given me that drive. And to answer your question from before, have I considered a postgraduate degree? Yeah. Could I go after my PhD in supply chain? Absolutely. It's an incredible commitment. Don't get me wrong, but it's not a foregone impossibility. And I think that's what this experience has really given me is that there can be.
Yeah, and besides that, I'm sure there are also some practical career benefits when you get that degree. And not only you gain additional experience, education, but also in the eyes of your employer or the market, now you have more value because you have that degree. Would you say that plays a certain role, at least in your field, or it's more for your own, like for yourself?
I think it started off as fulfilling something that I felt was missing in my life. But through the process, it showed me that I was more valuable, right? That I did have a higher ceiling, right? And, yeah, could I get a master's degree and stay where I'm at and not go anywhere? Sure. I think that is the icing on the cake for me is I did this for me. I did this to achieve something bigger, but it's opened up my eyes and it's opened up the realm of possibilities for me. I had a sit down with my director of logistics the other day, who's also an Aggie, and he kind of asked me, he says, "Where do you want to go?" And I told him point blank, I said, "I want your job, and or I want to be vice president of logistics someday." 5 years ago, that wasn't even a thought in my head, but it was this process and this growth that gave me that confidence in myself, that gave me that drive and that purpose, and opened up an avenue that it could pay off in the end.
Oh, that's a very great insight. Once you do that, once you go into that education path, on that education path, it opens up some possibilities that you haven't really planned for from the get-go. And you mentioned that you have to work night shifts and combine the education with your work. Obviously, that's not an easy thing to do, especially because work, education, but also you have your own personal life, and you need to take care of everything with health and whatever it is. So how do you manage this? And maybe for people who are considering this path, maybe you have some advice for them as well.
Well, it's a grind. And as I post on LinkedIn often, it's a grind. Yeah. The key thing I would say to anyone contemplating this is it's doable, right? It's not easy, right? But nothing worth doing ever is. And it's a cliche. I get it. But no, yeah. I mean, I work. So I work for Daikin Manufacturing, big AC company. They put the name on the ballpark here in Houston, and we're a multinational global corporation, Japanese held for $17 billion a year in revenue. Our facility here in Houston has 9,000 employees. We're a 24-hour operation, practically 7 days a week. So, yeah, grad school and a night shift was almost a perfect marriage. When I started considering this, and I spoke to my leaders and I told them, hey, I'm thinking about applying for grad school. Of course, they were all very, very supportive, but then I got accepted. And it was, then I had to share with them, well, this is my commitment to Texas A&M University per week, and had to talk to my wife, and of course the staff at Texas A&M University was incredibly supportive and flexible with scheduling my classes, 2 classes I was taking 6 hours a semester. I kind of tried to schedule them all on Tuesday, Thursdays. And so, yeah, I work here till 2 o'clock in the morning, drive home 45 minutes, get home. By the time I unwind, yeah, it's 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I got to take the girls to school, sleep when I can, get up, drive the 70 miles to College Station, sit in lecture for 3 hours, turn around, drive another hour back to work here again till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. The key thing is it's doable. It's not easy. It's painful. Do I get grumpy? Do I have a short fuse sometimes? Sure. But I have to maintain that focus and the goal at the end, which is this spring, May 2026. I will be graduating and walking across that stage. It's been a 2-year commitment, but all I'll tell people is it's doable. We will all, as people, look for the easy outs. We look for, oh, but it's tough. Oh, but it'll take 2 years. Oh, but I'll have to drive. At the end of the day, there's speed bumps and you can push through them. If you can look at yourself within and say, can you do it? Yeah, you can. It's not going to be easy, but yes, it's doable. I will wholeheartedly support anyone, veteran or not. I don't care. I'm 48 years old. I got guys in here 50 plus. I got guys, you know, 20 plus GEDs. Hey, man, maybe I'll go back to school. Go for it. I'll help you. I'll help you apply. I'll help you talk to whoever you need to talk to. I'll even help you with your schedule. Yes, I wholeheartedly support anyone. As I tell my employees, I will never knock someone for trying to better themselves. And it doesn't have to be a college degree, whether it's a certification, whether it's a trade, whether it's a license, HVAC, X-ray tech, whatever, do it.
Yeah, great advice. I appreciate you sharing this. This is extremely important and it's very motivating as well. Do you have days off during your schedule during your week at all, or it doesn't allow you to like fully rest for a day?
No, I mean my only days off are Saturday, Sunday. Um, the last winter, my cohort, we went to Portugal on a study abroad program for 2 weeks. So I had to use up my vacation for this trip. My wife joined me, and it was an incredible experience. I've flown through Europe on my way to go to war, but I'd never been to Europe and seen it. And I spent 2 weeks in Portugal, which was incredible. But no, I mean, my day starts, Monday afternoon at noon, and I basically in the door, out the door, on the road, in class, at work, all the way through Friday night, Saturday morning at about 1 a.m. And then I'm down for about 48 hours. But I got homework, I got papers to do, I've got projects to work on. So yeah, my girls and my wife are incredibly supportive. They let me sleep when I can, which is typically in the early hours of a day if I'm not in College Station. But yeah, it's going to be great when I graduate. Over the summer, I didn't take any courses over the summer, and I'll be honest, I was bored because it was like all I did was work. Well, it's like, man, I feel I need to be reading something. I need to be writing something. I need to be researching something. But no, I mean, the fall semester cranked up and I'm back at it.
Yeah, that's great. And let's finish with this. If you can give advice for people in college, whether they are, you know, your age or 22 years old or whatever it is, since you're like in the middle of it, maybe some advice with your unique perspective that you want to share with anyone who's currently involved with education.
I think the big thing for me is two things. The first one I'll say is be humble. No one knows everything, right? And I think the smartest words anyone can say is, I don't know. And I think it's tough for people to admit that sometimes, but it doesn't mean you can't find out, right? And that's one of the things I've always hung my hat on as a leader, whether in the military or in the private sector, is I've always told my leaders is I'll never lie to you. If I don't know, I'll tell you. If you ask me, Ed, are we going to hit this goal tonight? No. And they'll ask me why. And I'll say A, B, C, D, E. That's why. That's one. Number two is never be too quick to jump to a decision or a conclusion. Think things through. And that I got from my father. No matter how big the problem, no matter how troublesome the situation, take a step back. Think about it. Dig it, tear it apart. Pros, cons, components. I can do this, but I can't do that, but I can do that if I do this. Think the problem through. And I think in today's world of instant gratification, we can often jump to bad decisions, but I take that back. They're not bad decisions, because bad decisions you learn from. And that's the other thing, is you got to learn from your mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes, but learn something from it. And what will you do differently? And that what carried me through my military experience and my operations experience as a leader in the private sector.
Awesome. Well, thank you for this advice and for all of the stories. Truly inspirational and motivational. Thank you for for sharing all this and for coming to the show, sir. Great conversation tonight.
Thanks, Danny. Again, I'm humbled and I'm honored that you would include me in your podcast. Like I said, I've caught a couple of your episodes, man. You've had some incredible guests, and man, I'm humbled and I'm proud to be on here with you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining